We were kind of surprised that they only supported the H100 and above.
If you compare that to Llama 4 Behemoth, that's almost 8 times more efficient. This Llama 4 Behemoth has to run on an entire cluster. So that's super cool.
One of the big innovations here is that it's running at 4 bits floating point, and they do it as like it's called MX FP4.
I hope everyone on the research team got a free NVIDIA hoodie for that forced obsolescence.
My best guess is that Apache 2 was the best option for the community, right? I mean, hats off to OpenAI for getting in the open source game.
All right, folks, great to be back. Welcome to the Eval Suite with Matt, Alfredo, and Rob. My name is Rob Spectre, and I am delighted to be joining you on what is a huge weekend for open source models. And you know how we love open source models here at Clarifai. We're going to be talking about the big one from OpenAI this week. That is GPT OSS. GPT OSS, the very first open weight model released by OpenAI. And to talk about it, we have two of my favorite people to talk about with models, and that is first Mr. Matthew Zeiler. He is a NYU PhD, which is just a few blocks from where I'm sitting right now, coming to us from Northern Virginia, and he was the one blowing up my phone on Tuesday when this model got released. Matthew, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
Man, super stoked. Also joining us is your Clarifai CTO and head of product. It is Alfredo Ramos. Alfredo, how's it going, bud?
It's going really well. Happy to be with you guys.
Oh,
Thanks for
man,
organizing,
pretty
Rob.
stoked. Have you gotten any sleep this week, Alfredo? It has been stacked with these two monster releases from OpenAI.
Business as usual, honestly. But yeah, it's been a busy week. The week that ended up being quite different than the way it started.
And it did. It did. I think when I woke up on Monday, I didn't realize that we'd have not just one, but two absolutely industry-shaking models that would be released by OpenAI. But the main one that we're going to talk about is the one we're most excited about at Clarifai, because we love open weight models, and that is GPT OSS. It's the first open weight model from OpenAI since they open weighted GPT 2.5 several years ago. So this is a massive development. It's also the first frontier open weight model released by an American company since Llama 4 way back in April, which feels like a long time ago now, though it really isn't. And unlike Llama 4, it was released under a very permissive license under Apache 2, and the benchmarks so far place it pretty well against similar models of similar size in the O series from OpenAI. And as time has gone on over the course of the week, many other benchmarks it seems to be performing well in as well. Matt, we'll start with you. You were the first one to start blowing up my phone when this got released. What stood out to you immediately about this model, and why you think it's going to be important?
Yeah, I was excited when it came out. We heard rumors it was going to happen for a while, so didn't know it was going to be Tuesday, but we quickly rallied to test it out and get it available to our customers that day within a few hours. And we were surprised at how good it was. It was good at coding, good at math. In general, just chatting with it felt good. And most importantly, it's really fast and efficient to run. So a lot of these models that came open source this year from different vendors, primarily from the Chinese vendors, are really big, as well as Llama 4 from Meta is really big as well. And this one at least does as well in terms of accuracy, but can fit on a single GPU for even the 120 billion parameter model. And then to boot, they gave a 20 billion parameter model to everybody that can run on your Mac or your other laptop or even a really powerful phone. So it really opened up the aperture of what's possible with open source, and I think it's an exciting time for everybody right now.
Yeah, I was struck by time to first token from this model in particular, especially with the 20 billion parameter model. Alfredo, we got two sizes. We got the 20 billion, we got the 120 billion. So it's sitting in this really funky space where it's not as big as these monster models that we've seen out of some of these Chinese labs like Minimax or K2 over the course of the past 2 months. But it's not as small as like the edge model that Google released with Gemma. What do you feel about the two parameter sizes, and how's that stack up in this current market?
You're right. The GPT OSS models at 20B and 120B are definitely substantial, but they're not nearly as big as the chunky boys like Quen 3 Thinking at 235B, Minimax at close to 500 billion, and Matt mentioned Llama 4. Their behemoth model stands at 2 trillion with a T parameters,
Two
which is
trillion. Good night.
which is so these models, the 20B, like Matt mentioned, can fit on a single H100 GPU with about 80 gigs of memory, and perhaps the most surprising thing, the 120B model also can squeeze into one of those single H100 GPUs, and that's not only super efficient. If you compare that to Llama 4 Behemoth, that's almost 8 times more efficient. This Llama 4 Behemoth has to run on an entire cluster. So that's super cool. In terms of like a trend, there's more small models coming out, and there's large models that are also evolving. And so it's really about having options. Open source models, when they're small, they're great because they can fit on multiple form factors like consumer hardware or edge devices, and you obviously save a bunch on compute costs. That is good for the community. It makes AI more accessible. But the larger models are extremely powerful. They can do all kinds of complex reasoning tasks. And so having the flexibility to use a multitude of models across form factors is amazing. And of course, being able to use these very powerful models on-prem, on edge, on your laptop, that's exciting.
It is indeed. Do you feel like this is where the sweet spot is going to end up being for open weight models that get released for the remainder of the year? Kind of not as large as some of these behemoth models to borrow from Meta, but larger than some of these edge models that we're seeing today.
It's a good question. Obviously, difficult to tell, but I do think that, I mean, as it is, these H100s are pretty beefy. They're becoming the standard of how people are deploying, and being able to have a very powerful model on an H100 is great. So definitely love that. But I also expect that some of these models are going to be getting much more complex, and they'll be running on large clusters. So I guess we'll see.
Well, the obvious feature that strikes me, Matt, with the hardware that's required to run the larger of the two models is it does appear that we're in a Hopper and Blackwell world now. Do you think that Flash Attention 3 is going to be standard for the models that we should expect for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think so. And we were kind of surprised that they only supported the H100 and above kind of hardware at launch. Maybe we'll see additionals being released and kind of, I don't know, downgraded to previous generations or at a Lovelace at least. But yeah, it requires these beefier cards, and a lot of that's to do with the lower precision that they're running this on. So one of the big
Mm.
innovations here is that it's running at 4-bit floating point, and they do it as like it's called MX FP4. So it's actually like trying to decide for a block of numbers what their kind of exponential scale is, so that they can kind of save some bits on each number, keeping them at really low precision, like 4 bits each. And so the Blackwell supports that in hardware, and then Hopper can emulate that pretty well. But I guess the older generations can't do that kind of stuff. So you have to fall back to 16-bit, and I think we'll see a lot of new checkpoints on Hugging Face for that. But it's going to be slower, and it's going to require a lot more memory. So you won't be able to fit it into 80 gigs doing it that way. So going forward, I think we're going to see a lot more models, especially with Blackwell out, given the hardware support for 4-bit, coming out with that as a standard.
Well, that's definitely not welcome news for me, as I'm still limping along with my 2-year-old 4090. I guess I got a hardware upgrade in my future, Alfredo. Um,
Yeah,
so
I think.
go ahead.
Yeah, maybe they like partnered up with NVIDIA or something to build this model and really optimize it for that, so everybody upgrades their gamer cards or something.
Indeed, I hope everyone on the research team got a free NVIDIA hoodie for that forced obsolescence. Alfredo, you've been obviously working with the team at Clarifai in the lab trying to benchmark this thing. What are you seeing in terms of performance so far?
Uh, so here's what we've done. We've been benchmarking on H100s, GH200s, B200s, and what we often do is we'll try to benchmark using multiple of the different frameworks like VLLM, SGLang, TensorRT LLM. And so we've been doing benchmarks on that, and I'll caveat by saying that it's early, and so these are early numbers, but one thing we've seen is that you're able, with a single thread on an H100, we're seeing upwards of 250 tokens per second for the 20B model, and closer. For the 120B model, and closer to 400 tokens per second for the 20B. Now, the really interesting thing, if you're impressed by that, you'll be impressed by this. When you crank this up to about 100 threads, we're able to get 8,000 tokens per second on an H100 for the 120B, which is extremely
Wow.
impressive. And just to put that into context, um, I was comparing some of the benchmarks we did with the Llama 3370B model, which I guess dropped now a few months ago. And it's got fewer parameters than the 120B. But with that, we're seeing about 2,000 tokens per second with 100 threads. So like 4x more higher throughput on this model. And the reason for that is that the Llama 3370B is a dense model. And these GPT OSS models, especially the 120B, it's using mixture of experts. So at any point, it's only activating a fraction of its parameters, and that makes it so that it's significantly more efficient. So some pretty massive numbers with really reads.
Wow, and that lack of that small ratio of active parameters to total parameters is also responsible for its impressive latency numbers with time to first token as
Absolutely,
well.
absolutely.
Matthew, when you're when you're looking at the landscape right now, and considering some of these models that are out there, the early word from a lot of practitioners in the space is that GPT OSS has somewhat mixed performance across a number of domains. Seems like it's doing well in coding and in STEM, doing less well in language generation and writing. When you think about what this model is good at and what this model is bad at, what do you think the opportunities are for fine tuning with something that's this strong in reasoning and weak in general knowledge?
Yeah, it's pretty early still. I think we'll kind of understand what this model's good at over the next few weeks as more and more people adopt it. But it totally makes sense that coding and math it would be strong at, given a lot of the tuning techniques today, especially the post-training techniques, are doing these kind of verifiable tasks like coding and math, where there's a correct answer. The code compiles and runs and does what you want, or the math, solution is correct. Those types of tasks, you can basically generate data and generate a lot of it. So these models, really in the last year, we've seen not just open source, but the closed source models improve in those domains really, really well. I think the other domains, either new algorithms are going to have to come up for kind of that synthetic data generation, to benefit in the same way, or a lot more human labeled data is going to need to be collected. But that's both are a good opportunity to take this good base model, efficient base model as well, and fine tune it on the data sets to broaden its scope and capabilities for other tasks. It also makes sense to me that they would try and focus on the coding and math. I think Anthropic has become known for a lot of the coding models with their Sonnet series, especially kind of 3, 7, 4. They maybe are the leaders in that space. And I think OpenAI needed an answer, and the OSS model is part of that answer. Obviously, now GPT-5 came out yesterday, and that's another answer. So I think they wanted to focus on the coding a lot more with these models this week.
Definitely seems that way. Alfredo, you know, a lot of folks I know that are trying to deploy models of this size are doing so with, knowledge sets, trying to do stuff with RAG, and not really seeing the performance on a consistent basis going forward. When you think about fine tuning this model and supplementing it with general knowledge, what do you think the possible use cases are that might be able to improve some of the performance from against some of these like RAG techniques where the model is just searching a vector database?
Well, so the one nice thing, I don't remember the exact context length, but it's pretty big. I think it was like 128,000 or something like that. But it's got a pretty big context length. And
Yeah.
so, to be honest, a lot of what we've been seeing is more and more people are just taking advantage of the context length and sending
Mm-hmm.
in big contexts into these models, rather than having to rely on RAG. So for one thing, these models are reasonably well positioned. It's not like a 1 million context length like some of the Gemini models, but they're still decent. So that's one thing. And I do think that these will become pretty good trainer models. One of the use cases we were thinking about was using toolkits like DSPY, for example, to be able to automatically fine tune your prompts. One of the questions that we're hearing more and more from people is as they're realizing that models are dropping every 6 months or every 6 hours, depending who you ask, they're having to figure out how to keep up with the Jones on the right models, and being able to use techniques like with toolkits like DSPY to automatically figure out the best prompts as you go from one model generation to the next. The way the DSPI works is it's got a judge model, and these models can serve as a good evaluator, a good judge. We'll see. To be honest, I want to play with it. We've got a bunch of projects where this could be an interesting comparison. And so, just I'll give you an example. One use case that we see quite a bit that this could be good for is content moderation, where content moderation, you get a bunch of text, it needs to understand if the text is positive or negative, or it's hateful, or it's got racism in it, or things like that. And I would expect that these models perform quite well with it. But back in the day, and when I say that, I mean like 18 months ago, people used to train very custom content moderation models, and now people are using these models to be able to not only have really high accuracy content moderation, but also just use prompt tuning to evolve your prompts as you need to moderate new content. And so I think this model could be perfect for that, and I'm looking forward to working with the team to evaluate that.
That was definitely one of the first use cases that jumped to mind with a model of this size. Is using it as an evaluator model with DSPy feels like the sweet spot for something of this size, especially if you're trying to do prompt engineering on a smaller edge model. It'll give you quite a bit more variety of the prompts that it will entertain, but the quality of those prompts are going to be higher than if you use the edge model itself to be the evaluator model in that space. So I'm really excited
exactly right.
I have a couple pet agents that I've been using who need a little prompt love. So I'm looking forward to doing that over the course of the weekend.
I like referring to agents as pets. That's a good one.
They will get a better name as soon as I'm able to make them do something useful, which tragically has not been very frequent so far. Matt, so if you just do a llama poll on GPT OSS on your laptop, it's like responding immediately. Like, what do you think the implications are for the end user when models are responding this quickly, especially after the consumer expectation has been that, the computer's kind of thinking a bit in the way that a human might? Do you think that they're going to trust the answers more or less when the latency is so fast?
Yeah, it's clear that with a model of this speed, there's capabilities that these things can do that humans can't do. And like now that the model's all reason, we thought that's kind of how our brains work and think all day long, but the models can do that and do it faster, clearly. So that's exciting. It can iterate and work through problems much better. And the fact that it can do it from a laptop is pretty crazy. And with our platform at Clarifai, we can actually take that model, run your favorite toolkit, Olama, whatever, and it will be exposed to the public API. So share the compute that you have on your laptop. Maybe it's a gamer desktop you have, and leverage that now with these efficient models for your real use cases with your collaborators, and do that in a secure way. We call that local runners, and I think it makes the most out of these really powerful local models.
It also makes it a lot easier if you're doing something that's you know optimizing the model in some way, either distilling it or fine tuning it, or even doing the prompt engineering. It just makes it a lot easier for you to share what you're working on with the rest of your team without having to migrate gigabytes of data back and forth like you're trying to send. The analogy I always use is AI researchers remind me a lot of web developers in the early 2000s, in the sense that they're just sending patch files to each other via email, or they're sending like Excel spreadsheets back and forth in order to maintain a project. We're basically doing the same thing with gigabytes of weights, but having local runners with me, running a local runner right quick, I can immediately get a URL which I can send to a colleague, and securely they can interact with the model that's running on my machine and provide feedback, like if they're working on a set of evals for the model or what have you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this feature we built internally to help us debug the models, but it's been so useful that we had to open it up as a product. And we were talking to a large enterprise customer just earlier this week about how we can go multi-cloud and on-premise with the rest of our platform, and local runners let you run it locally. And I said to them, maybe you're not interested in this, but one of our researchers chimed in and said, I think actually you're going to be interested, because I use this every day to actually debug my model development, and it makes me like an order of magnitude faster. So that was really cool to hear organically from our own employees, like how powerful this is. And we just launched it recently, so we're eager to see the developer adoption pick up.
Indeed, gonna be a lot of fun. I'm definitely gonna fire one up and shoot you one this weekend, as I'm trying to get this Formula One agent to work.
Sweet.
Alfredo, I'm going to lean on your two MBAs here to provide a little business perspective on this model. Apache 2, that's a bold license choice, especially in a field where a lot of these, at least Western open weight models, tend to have the unity, like it's free until you actually start making money, and then it starts becoming more and more onerous. Why do you think they chose to go with such a permissive model, given folks like Meta have a very different approach to releasing an open weight model?
I wish I wasn't fly in the wall. I'm sure they discussed it, right? And I'm sure there was someone talking about like what Meta did and what they chose to do. My best guess is that Apache 2 was the best option for the community, right? I mean, hats off to OpenAI for getting in the open source game and putting a strong model out there. I mean, the last time that OpenAI did that was GPT-2 a bunch of years ago. So it's wonderful to see them do it, and they did so with a model that has so many less caveats. Frankly, what it does is it brings into question why are organizations like Meta putting together these bespoke licenses that it's hard to know whether you're going to trust them for the long term or not. We'd love to see people just move to licenses like Apache 2 or MIT. So thrilled that they went in that direction, and also thrilled that they just simply released something for open source. And you know, maybe Anthropic will follow suit. Maybe there'll be more of these organizations that start to contribute back to the AI community. It only helps.
Yeah, it's definitely laying down a marker. I think what we're going to see going forward, or what the developer expectation is going to be for adopting some of these open weight models, is going to be a real OSI approved license. And I think Apache 2 has such a rich history of projects that have been used in an entrepreneurial fashion. It's really exciting to see. I know we're coming up on the end of our time. Folks who are tuning in, we really appreciate you sticking with us today as we tried a couple times to get this thing going. The producer of the show, myself, will have to fall on the sword, but deeply appreciate all you all tuning in. And if you have any questions, be sure to share them as we're coming up on the end of our conversation. And be sure to like and subscribe the video. It'll tell us if we should do some more of these in the future. Matt, this is yet another reasoning model. So you're seeing more reasoning tokens getting generated, and all these tokens cost money. When you're thinking about deploying these, what are some ways that you can kind of rein in your costs and make them a little more predictable as you're trying to figure out whether or not you're going to use an inference provider, or if you're going to host it yourself, or if you're going to use some sort of compute orchestration?
Great question. And I think everybody's thinking about the same thing as they see these code editing tools, especially just take in your whole repo as its kind of context and make thousands of tokens just to make an edit. And then they do that on a, iterative basis. You're easily burning through millions of tokens at that point. And so if you're paying per token, you feel that directly, and it almost makes you feel guilty to use it, in a sense. Whereas if you switch that mindset and use compute orchestration, which is our term for running your models the same way on all the clouds, on premise, and with local runners on your local compute, you change that mindset to thinking about the actual underlying compute and pay per the hour or minute there. And so if you have, decent compute at your disposal, maybe you have an H100, Rob, I don't know. But if you have good stuff, like
Soon,
these things running
soon.
soon, yeah, I think we all need it to run this model. But the small one running on your laptop is actually capable enough to just use basically electricity. That's what you're paying for. You already bought your laptop, and we charge very little for the local runners. It's $1 a month right now as an intro rate. So we want people to just hook up their compute and start burning through tokens with great models like the GPT OSS 20 billion. And then once you're ready for production, we don't recommend you run your product off your laptop, but we make it the change of a command line in order to run it in the cloud. And you get to pick, your favorite cloud provider, your favorite instance, and you pay per hour instead of per token. And then that node is dedicated to you. It auto scales with your volume, so you can go from, prototype through production without ever having to think about the infrastructure and forget paying about the per token rates. And I think this is really crucial as the whole market for LLMs is going from, the chat experience to the agent experience. Agents right now are not where they're going to be in the next 6 to 12 months. They're all going to be running in the background doing work on your behalf, just chunking through token after token. And so do you really want to, get that bill as they're running 24/7, or do you want to have this more scalable, predictable model of compute orchestration? We think the latter.
I think CC usage has definitely highlighted to everyone in the AI space how quickly you can rack up a massive bill if you are not paying by the interval, the time interval, but you're paying by token. And Alfredo, that kind of changes how you develop these agents, doesn't it? I mean, if you're no longer constrained by the unit economics of token consumption and instead are constrained by the same kind of cloud costs that we've all been dealing with for the past 15 years, what you decide to do with the agent or how many agents you build or how many discrete agents you have working on the problem kind of changes, doesn't it?
I mean, absolutely. And in fact, for me, the question is whether you need to move to kind of like an infra plus model to be able to really make agents reach their potential. So many people that we're speaking to, they talk about how they're already on multiple clouds, but we haven't spoken to a large organization that isn't considering uh, certainly multiple clouds, certainly on-prem, mixture of the two, and people are starting to realize that to get the real units of AI to work in their favor, they need to be flexible and they need to be hybrid. So it's going to change. We get people come to us sometimes and they have massive volumes, and being able to tell them, hey, you should be essentially just paying for these GPUs and move away as much as you can from a usage-based model or a token-based model, because it makes material difference. Like it could you can literally save 70 to 90% of budget if you moved essentially to what's as close as you can get to a fixed cost on the underlying infrastructure, rather than paying for every time that you breathe a token. So yeah, it's a big change, and I think the next 12 to 24 months are going to be extremely interesting to see how the industry develops and how the cloud service providers are able to distinguish themselves against the neo clouds, and how old school data centers maybe come back to life as they start to kind of play in this different economic of the world of AI and agents.
I definitely am hearing more people talk about hardware and racking and stacking their own gear in a colo now than I was 10 years ago. It feels like the beginning of the aughts when that's what you had to do to get something on the internet. And it's really being driven out of the cost efficiency that's available. Well, Matt, I think we've been chin wagging enough here about this whole story. Let's take a look at this model and have a little fun.
Awesome, let's do it. So let me just share my screen here and give you a glimpse of what we can do with it. So this is a version of the model that is running on my laptop. And I'll just say hello there. Tell me what day it is. So this is using a local runner. The model is actually running on Olama. I probably haven't configured things properly with Olama because it does have a weird delay there. On the left, you can see kind of a terminal chunking out some responses. I think it's thinking through the problem, and then we'll show the final answer here after it's done some thinking. And there we go. Today is Friday, August 8th. So you can see we kind of hid in this example some of the reasoning tokens to just show the final result, but it did a lot of reasoning. It did about 489 tokens there to come up with, maybe 20 or something in the final answer. So this is pretty cool. This is using the compute I have at my laptop, but this is a public API, so I could hit this with any OpenAI compatible client in any programming language I like. This front end is just a playground that helps you test it out very simply. And on a M1 Mac, I'm generating about 23 tokens per second, so that's pretty good.
That
Now,
is crazy for a laptop.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
especially with a model of that size. Like I don't think I've gotten Gemma running that fast on my laptop.
Yeah, and let me try. Maybe there's a better one, and we can see what it looks like at. Um, let's see. It'll probably go through that thinking thing and hide that reasoning. But once it's done thinking, we will we'll see what it spits out in this case. So it's a little bit longer of a result I expect than just asking for the date. And then you'll get a feeling for what, 20 to 30 tokens per second is. So here we go. So pretty reasonable. We also seen with this model, it loves making tables. So it's kind of cool to watch it render in the UI as the tables are actually being generated on the fly.
Yeah, I feel like
And
they kind of ganked that from Anthropic too. Like that's one thing I've noticed with the 4 series for both Opus and Sonnet. Man, they love tables.
yeah,
it's
yeah.
tables for days.
Yeah, and this architecture diagram. And think about how long that would take you to make yourself. These models are great for a lot of routine tasks.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll end that one. It'll keep generating on my Mac for a while, using up some electricity, but we'll go to the cloud here. So the second tab is we have a fully hosted version of this model, and I'll just let it run one of these test prompts. Now you can see this one's actually rendering those reasoning tokens, and the time to first token was immediate. As soon as I
Yeah.
hit enter, it was showing on the screen.
This is like
Uh,
suspiciously fast.
mhm.
Like I don't, it doesn't feel generative at this point. It feels like a GET request for a web page. Like it feels like I'm
Yeah,
accessing a URI as opposed to, generating a wholesale new response, which is, I mean, Alfredo, it kind of opens up a lot of possibilities if you're a software developer.
It's super cool. Yeah, it's almost too fast. Frankly, can't keep up with it.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that one was, around 120. Here's a fun one, right? A program that uses neural nets to classify images. Huh.
Oh,
Look at
hey.
this. Here we go. It's writing a CFAR 10 classifier in Python.
Okay, there we go. It's a little old school, but that's cool.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
I think yeah, we probably could have given a little bit more tokens. It generates so fast and loves generating, so it needs more.
Yeah.
But this
Almost
is,
120 tokens per second. That's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, and this is on a
That's
single GPU in
ridiculous.
the cloud. And so, the way you can take this next is hit a deploy button, and we give you the choices to deploy it to your favorite cloud provider, your favorite GPU. So as you scroll through when you're creating a compute cluster on Clarifai, we can show you AWS, Google, Oracle's coming soon. Some of us internally have that now, and then Vultr. They have some really great prices and great offerings. So you can grab a GH200 for 399 and run this model. So that gives you the sense of going from whatever it is token per second or token dollar per token to 399 an hour and have that kind of speed all dedicated to you 24/7.
Man, you're probably saving money at maybe the 20-minute mark or the 25-minute mark at that rate, given how many tokens this thing gobbles up, especially with reasoning. Like if you let the context window or the output window be 0, if you just let it use as many tokens as it wants, it's very verbose, especially the 120 billion parameter model. It'll yak at you for a long time, and it doesn't take very long at all, like less than an hour, for you to see some immediate return by deploying this via compute orchestration, as opposed to consuming the tokens via some other inference provider.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Alfredo said earlier, that rate we just saw live, that's just for that one request, but it really pays off when you start hammering it with many concurrent requests. So think about
Mm,
all your agents running at the same time, or as you collaborate with your colleagues, or you're building a startup, everybody's using it for your product. That's when the dollar per hour really starts paying up, because the tokens per second at high concurrency get into the thousands, and so these instances really pay for themselves quickly.
well, it's also liberating when you're designing the agentic workflow, right, Alfredo? Like, if you're consuming, if your costs are tied to the token, maybe you don't write another agent that handles a discrete part of the workflow, just out of concern that your costs are going to rise exponentially, even though it may produce a better user experience.
once you're already paying for the GPUs on an hourly basis, your mindset shifts to push as much stuff through it as you humanly can. You move to like, how do I abuse this thing rather than treat it with kid gloves? So it's quite nice.
Yeah, it's CC usage for everything. It's really nice. Cool. Well, Matt, thanks a lot for showing it off. This is available in the playground right now. And obviously, you can feel free to reach out to us either here. We'll be watching this video for the rest of the week, or you can catch us on our Discord, and we'll be happy to talk to you more about this new model. I know we're coming up on the end of our time, guys, but we got to talk a little bit about GPT-5. Obviously, the proprietary model also got released, and Alfredo, you and the crew were able to get it up on our inference API the very same day. What do you guys think? Obviously, we all watched the live stream yesterday. What's your take on their new frontier model?
We were so happy to be able to get, one of the things that as a company we've tried to do is we tried to get to the point that within no more than 24 hours, we have all the best models up and running on our community. This one, we were able to get running, I think within they did like a webcast or whatever. We did it within like an hour and a half. And so if you go to clarifai.com/explore, you'll be able to see all those closed source models. And we do that because we want to give people options. And while there are some awesome open source models, people still want to use Anthropic and OpenAI for various reasons. So these GPT-5 models are great. They're eloquent in their prose. They're great at coding. At Clarifai, the engineering team is applauded for using code generation as much as possible, and having the availability of these tools to be able to do more coding is amazing. And that's one. I mean, for us as technologists, it's probably the most exciting trend. Claude for some time was arguably the best code generation model. It's nice to see OpenAI come up and compete. Definitely want to see some of those types of models reach open source. We've been following the later Quen model that is a big one. It requires probably a bunch of nodes, a bunch of GPUs to run. But code generation with GPT-5's gotten stronger, and this is something that if you're a team that's not already infusing your development processes with AI and code generation tools, you're missing out on significant improvements in productivity. And very excited about this direction.
Matt, it did strike me that it felt like we got a bit of a preview on Tuesday of what GPT-5 was going to look like on Thursday, especially when it comes to this ratio of total parameters versus active parameters. It seems like that technique is very much also being used with this new model from OpenAI.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems fast. They improved the same areas that GPT OSS is good in, like coding. I think they've caught up and slightly surpassed Anthropic. But overall, I felt like it wasn't, mind blowing. It wasn't. I think there was a lot of anticipation for GPT-5 for a long, long time, and OpenAI had all these different naming conventions and variants before that. I think people were expecting more. So I'll take the opposite end of the debate, and I don't know. I wasn't blown away. I actually left the live stream halfway through. I was like, back to work. Just
Wow.
another model. So
Were you one of the many people that immediately hopped on Polymarket and put down a bet that Google was going to have the AI crown before the end of the month? That was a very inverted graph.
yeah, Gemini 3, I'm sure is gonna come out, and yeah, they're not sleeping, and they got all the resources in the world. So it's gonna be exciting rest of the year.
Well, it's a lot to take in. There was one decision that really struck me, like the two of you and Clarifai have been doing inference on the internet for a very long time. You've been serving customers with models, longer than most of these AI companies have even been alive. And the decision to remove the old models entirely, that like rug pull that everyone was depending on, and force everybody to the latest GPT-5 model, seems to be a decision that is attracting a lot of ire from folks that have, deployed production systems against these models. Were you surprised by the decision to not just deprecate the models, but like remove them entirely?
I actually didn't know that. So this is actually kind of my live reaction. That's not good. I mean, we've been running production workloads, as you said, for over a decade for customers, and we have to very carefully message and have a slow rolling deprecation window, and otherwise customers break, and and that's not good for anybody. So especially with these LLMs, it's tough because your prompt changes a lot. Oh, we have a guest, and and uh, your prompt becomes very specific to the model. So it's going to be interesting when people's prompts don't work, their production workloads don't work, as they're being forced to use a very different model.
Yeah, I mean, if you just take the same prompt and you drop it into the various O series models from OpenAI in this previous generation, the results that you would get are dramatically different. I can't imagine just waking up, well, not really waking up, but just like one afternoon, suddenly, this thing that I had in production behaves one way, and now I'm like, I have to start over with my prompt engineering all over again, Alfredo, if I'm going to get the same results.
Yeah, that hurts. That hurts. I mean, if you're on an engineering team now, you're burning the midnight hour. I would not be surprised that, depending how rigorous you are in your practices, are you evaluating are you updating your data sets? Are you going through rigorous evals? And if you are, you're not happy right now because you're having fast track all this stuff out of nowhere. And so I could see that. I can see that being difficult. On the flip side, um, I know quite a few engineers that love deprecating code, right? So I'm trying to put myself in their shoes for a second, right? From another perspective, it's almost like the engineer's dream is to be able to say, deprecate that thing. I don't want to maintain it anymore. But once you've got a big load of customers using it, you have to be a little bit more careful. And so that stands to reason. We'll see how this evolves over time. And it just also makes me think that OpenAI and these companies could be doing more to help people transition from one version to another, and like what are the tools that they're offering to make it so that it's a much easier transition.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of consumer mindset versus business mindset, right? Like maybe this decision makes a lot of sense for the users of the consumer app, and that's where the majority of their revenue appears to be coming from right now. But for folks that are doing this for mission critical applications, which is the hope of any developer tool, right, is that you're on the critical path for your customer and you're serving them to make their business better. It did strike me as a pretty wild choice.
Right.
Well,
So I'm guessing
gang,
the enterprise customers probably can still access the older models maybe for a little bit longer. And it's just not the
I
consumer
believe
ones.
that's the case for the API, but
That makes
definitely for
sense.
the
That makes sense.
but there are law offices that are had built custom GPTs that had very refined prompts over months and months and months that suddenly do not work the same way anymore, and that's that's a difficult reality for those customers to be in.
It's a good call.
Well, gang, really appreciate the time. This was super fun for our first edition of the Eval Suite. Folks, if you enjoyed the conversation today, be sure to smash that subscribe button and hit that bell. That'll let us know that this kind of content is stuff that you want and will encourage us to make more in the future. Before we part company, I just have to know one thing. Matthew, Alfredo, what are you building with GPT OSS this weekend?
Got to get the voting agents going. I want to see how this thing does, chunking through tokens all weekend long.
Indeed. I guess there's a new OpenSWE just got released, a new asynchronous coding agent. I'm really interested to see what it looks like plugging in this model. Alfredo, what are you going to be working on?
So I think we just burned the midnight hour every night this week. So I've got the kids alone this weekend. My wife's in Miami, so I don't know how much coding I'll be doing, but in general, one of the things that I've been looking into with the team is I do want to start bringing in toolkits like DSPY a bit more and kind of playing around with how to transition some workloads on to some of the new models, and so that's something that I'm interested in.
Man, I love DSPA or DSPy. I like started using it November of last year, and I don't think it dramatically changed my prompt authoring process. It makes things a lot easier. I have this agent that's used for motorsport that I can consult over the course of the race to get a sense of what's going on. And I know we're in a break for Formula One right now, so I'm going to have to watch some other racing series that I know absolutely nothing about. So I'm excited to drop GPT OSS in and see if it can help guide me through some of these other racing series that I know less about. So
You
I'll
just
be
made me
using it to
think of
teach me.
one thing that I was disappointed at, that they didn't release a model that supports image inputs for a multimodal model. So that would have been great to see. One of the disappointments for me was that it was just pure text to text, and we would have loved to see an image model as well.
Yeah, indeed. Well, there's always next week because,
Yeah,
as
seriously.
we know in this business, things can change on a dime. Folks, thanks again for tuning in and watching us this week. It's been great to have this conversation with these fine folks, and we'll see if we do this again. This was a lot of fun. So. Well, we will catch you on this channel, or you can catch us on Twitter or on Discord, or just shoot us a note at support@clarifai.com if you need any help. Until next time, we will see you on the Eval Suite. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Alfredo. See ya.